All right, folks, so what are we doing? Yesterday, April 10th, The Economist, the magazine, published one of its regular columns, the Charlemagne column, which is about Europe. And I felt it was so important that I naturally started sharing it all over the place. Here is the reality. People don't read these days, and even if they do, if it's more than like two paragraphs, then it becomes a problem. And at the same time, this is something that I think folks need to at least hear, if not read. And yes, The Economist, when they publish things like this, they have a little button you can click on and have an AI read things to you if you are so inclined. But then it is devoid of a really important factor or key aspect, which is it's devoid of human emotion. When somebody reads something out loud, they add themselves into it in a way that no AI can or ever will be able to. So I figured I'll do something. I'll take this column that I think is so important and everybody needs to hear and just record myself reading it out to you. One thing I need to say in full disclosure, I didn't ask The Economist if this is okay. They may very well come to me and say, take it down, and that's okay, and I will if they do. But at the same time, if they don't, while they don't, I think this is something that y'all need to listen to because it's important. All right, jumping right into it. This is the Charlemagne column in The Economist from April 10th, and it is titled "The Thing About Europe: It's the Actual Land of the Free Now. Europe's very real problems don't look so bad by comparison." The thing about Europe, the sneerers say, is that it is overregulated. Mounds of red tape and punitive taxes mean there are no trillion-dollar entrepreneurial ventures in France or Germany to match Amazon, Google, or Tesla. But that is not all Europe is lacking. Also absent from the continent are the broligarchs who sit atop such behemoths, some of whom have a tighter grip on power than on reality. There are thus no European Rasputins pumping untold millions into political campaigns, getting pride of place at leaders' inaugurations or their own new-minted government departments to run. There are few unicorns in Europe, alas, and too little innovation. That said, there are absolutely no tech executives boasting on social media of spending their weekends feeding bits of the state into the wood chipper. The thing about Europe is that it is indecisive, too slow to act. Every crisis requires multiple summits of the European Union's national leaders, often quibbling late into the night. The boring process of rule by consensus can slow the EU to a crawl. It took 4 days and 4 nights of haggling to agree on the bloc's latest 7-year budget in 2020. Then again, the European state apparatus does not arbitrarily shut down every few years when political agreement over funding proves elusive, leaving millions of public employees on furlough and basic services unavailable for days or weeks. Consensus rule also means that the petulant policy tweets of one misguided politician, 125% tariffs on China, anyone? Do not result in global stock markets being sent into a tailspin. The EU's top brass are unelected and sometimes unaccountable. Still, they would not dare to be photographed playing a round of golf after having wiped out the savings of millions of their compatriots. The thing about Europe is it freeloads on defense, not spending enough on its armed forces to single-handedly fend off threats. This will continue to be true for a long time, even as defense budgets are hiked across most of the continent. But it also reflects a different understanding of what defense means. For one, nobody in Europe, outside Russia at least, is even casually implying they will invade other countries. There is no Brussels quip about turning an unwilling neighbor into our 28th state. On the contrary, many of the EU's neighbors are desperate to join the club. Nor do European vice presidents fly uninvited to places they are seeking to annex on the pretext that their spouse wants to watch a sledge race. Europe may have scrimped on intelligence gathering, but its various leaders do know the identity of the aggressor who initiated the fighting in Ukraine. Hint, it is not Ukraine. Many foresaw the pitfalls of invading Iraq a while back. The thing about Europe is that it lacks an absolutist attachment to free speech. See how judges in Romania and France derailed the careers of hard-right politicians who have convinced themselves, with little evidence, that it was their ideology rather than their law-breaking that got them in trouble. Yet, to many Europeans, the idea that free expression is under threat seems odd. Europeans can say almost anything they want, both in theory and in practice. Europe's universities never became hotbeds of speech policing by one breed of culture warrior or the other. You can express a controversial view on any European campus, outside Hungary at least, without fear of losing your tenure or your grant. No detention centers await foreign students who hold the wrong views on Gaza. News outfits are not sued for interviewing opposition politicians. Law firms are not compelled to kowtow to presidents as penance for having worked for their political foes. The thing about Europe is that it is facing a demographic crisis. It is staving off a sharp decline in population only by shoring up its workforce with immigrants, some of whom have integrated poorly. Such immigration shows the appeal of the European way of life. For those who come seeking refuge from war, it shows Europeans' generosity, sometimes misguided. And while Europeans occasionally make a show of cracking down on illegal migrants, they generally rely on legal ones to pick their crops. The thing about Europe is its economy is permanently stuck in the doldrums, a global cautionary tale. And no wonder. Europeans enjoy August off, retire in their prime, and spend more time eating and socializing with their families than inhabitants of any other region. Oddly, surveys show people in countries both rich and poor value such leisure time. Somehow, Europeans manage to squeeze their employers into giving them more of it. Even as they were depressing GDP by wasting time playing with their kids, the denizens of Europe also managed to keep inequality relatively low while it ballooned elsewhere in the past 20 years. Nobody in Europe has spent the past week looking at their stock portfolio, wondering if they could still afford to send their kids to university. Europeans have no idea what medical bankruptcy is. Oh, and no EU leader has ever launched their own cryptocurrency. Huddled masses, have you considered Europe? The thing about Europe is it is naive, the only global trading bloc attached to moral norms. It insists on complying with the edicts of the World Trade Organization, say, or doing its part to cut carbon emissions. It is not a place that demands allies come crawling to it begging for favors on tariffs. The thing about Europe is that it is like an open-air museum, yesterday's continent. Is its model even sustainable? A good question, one that presupposes the European model is worth defending. It is a place blessed with walkable cities, long life expectancies, and vaccinated kids who do not need to be trained to dodge school shooters. Charlemagne's Rome is a place of many flaws, lots of them enduring. But in their own plodding way, Europeans have created a place where they are guaranteed rights to what others yearn for: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And there you have it. Strong words from The Economist, if I might add, the free trading, not exactly leftist sort of magazine. Thank you for listening.